Okay, hey. How many of you have ever used an eye tracker or been in an eye tracking experiment? Just like raise your hands. Interesting. Okay. Today I want to explore with you what it will be like to take eye tracking out of the lab and to utilize it into technology we all love. Just imagine what it would be like to live in a world which is enriched by information on demand. What it would be like to be able to see your house in hot pink and to show your wife what it would be like. And it's just like, the key to all that is like creating a perfect illusion in augmented reality. And the key component for that is eye tracking. Eye tracking is about measuring properties of the eye, like the eyeball position and the direction of gaze. And these features are then used in order to derive higher level information like attention, emotions, and even cognitive load. Eye tracking itself is a what-are-all technology. It has been around for a couple of decades. It had very crude beginnings, just as AR and VR did. But many years of research and miniaturization of components has brought us to a level where we are now. The components which enable eye tracking are available at the $1 price in volume. All you need essentially is a single camera per eye, and then all the magic happens in software. The key component to eye tracking is in order to make it robust. It seems like an easy challenge, but in order to make it work always and with everyone, that's really where most of the time me and my team spend on. Because it's like essentially with every technology, and especially interaction technologies, if a user can't rely on it, it won't be accepted. After making it robust, eye tracking, this is actually where the fun part started. It's utilizing the technology in order to create a better AR experience. Augmented reality is still in a stage where there's a little bit of work done in order to get it into consumer hands. A couple of challenges are listed here. One clearly is personalization. And with that, I mean, is that at the moment when you use AR glasses, you usually have to go through a multi-step like display calibration where you have to align all reference systems in order to assure that you can like really augment something and have it at the place where you want to show it. Another problem which will be there is that essentially if we all have AR glasses, it won't take long until all the objects in our periphery will start battling for our attention and will want to communicate with us, probably want to sell us something. Other interesting aspect is how are we planning to interact with virtual content? And one way is clearly the same way as we do with real objects, but it's my personal belief that it's actually an opportunity in there that we can interact with objects, with virtual objects, with beyond what's possible with real objects. And I will go into detail with that later. Another current problem surely is that when you have a lot of input, like for example, you have a lot of objects in the camera where you can augment something with it, it's a lot of processing that's going on. And there's at least current generation of headsets have limited processing power. And I want to explore with you a little bit more how eye tracking can help with all of these aspects. So first of all, let's talk about display calibration. A very essential component for creating a good illusion is getting the user's IPD right. That's the interpupillary distance. Essentially, that's the distance between our eyes. And in augmented reality, as well as in virtual reality, this is used in order to kind of like position virtual cameras. And essentially, this is how what it's used is you create that in order to create a view for the left and for the right eye in order to create a stereoscopic image. Because since most of the devices have a fixed focal plane, that means like the light always comes out of a certain distance, Vergence, like how much our eyes converge, is the only desk queue we have in AR. And this is realized by like displaying a different image for left and right. If now a system gets that wrong and assumes that your eyes are like farther apart, no, essentially your eyes are farther apart than the system assumes, what will happen is that objects will appear closer and smaller. And the same effect goes vice versa. If your eyes are like further together than the system assumes, what will happen is that objects appear farther and larger. It's easy to imagine because, so essentially if I would want to display you an object at 3 feet distance, I would render the images for the left and the right eye and place them at a certain position with like your assumed IPD. But now if your actual distance between your eyes is smaller, what your eyes will do, they have to like look more parallel in order to focus on both objects. And this will let your brain know that the object is actually farther than intended. Another interesting aspect is what we talked about is in how to cope with information overflow. This picture is taken out of a video which like viral again lately. It's like mixed reality. It was done a couple of years, like 2 or 3 years ago. It essentially shows a vision of how our world can look like if we all have augmented reality everywhere. So what you can see is that there's information everywhere and everything is like really bright and colorful and battling for attention. With the use of eye tracking, one can actually help the user like be protected from that by allowing, like using the person's point of gaze and essentially attention in order to only display information where and when it's needed. I want to talk to you a little bit more about how to interact and how to cope with like too much input. We're actually presenting a use case here at the show which demonstrates what you can do with that. So in this use case, you imagine that you're like a UPS driver and your task is to pick packages for delivery. And so what we do here is that we help the driver to find the right package. So we mark the package in his field of view, and then when the driver sees that, then at this time we present critical information to him. Like for example, one of the packages might be heavy, so we present a heavy warning to the user, and we can use eye tracking in order to know when the user is paying attention, when he essentially acknowledges that, and then make sure that the driver is safe and knows that the heaviest package, but also obviously in order to protect the goods. And I'd like to invite everyone to stop by our booth and to check out the demo. It also shows a nice way of like how to interact hands-free, because especially in this scenario, like when you would pick packages, what you would want is like you would want to get information when you look at it, and then because you would need both your hands to pick up the package. And essentially it will like show information like where to go and where to place it in the truck in order to ensure that you always have access to that. So essentially, to wrap up, is that it's my personal belief that eye tracking will be in every consumer AR headset, simply because of this automatic display calibration, because AR systems will be used to create illusions, and no one would want to go through a per-use calibration. So eye tracking can assure that this is not necessary. Another interesting aspect is clearly the information on demand, and to present information just in time when the user needs it. And the benefit of all that is that once this is in, we can use eye tracking for other things like hands-free interaction, make it more barrier-free and accessible. So I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions. Right? Oh.
Do you think this is important for the convergence
divergence accommodation conflict. So what it can certainly help for is, so if you don't have an adjustable focal length or like a focal distance of the display, what it can at least assure is that objects will appear in the right depth. Let's say if you would have the possibility to adjust that, you could use eye tracking in order to determine like at which distance the user is like looking at. Yeah, but the problem is still that the light will still always come out of this direction. I mean, it will feel maybe a little bit more comfortable, but your eye will always accommodate to where the light comes from, no matter if it's blurred. And like a lot of the systems projected to infinity, which is like, I don't know, 8 meters or something like this. No, and then light will always come like straight, even if you blur it. And then your eye will always focus on that. It's the same problem if you're in the cinema. A 3D cinema, your eye will always focus on the screen because that's where the light comes from, and then you converge, and this is like, it's hard to, like, your brain has trouble with the conflict.
So it's obvious that the eye tracking can be very helpful when doing things like hovering. Have you explored more injections such as like select or cancel with eye tracking?
Say again, select?
Selecting, cancel.
Selecting with eye tracking? Yeah, so this is actually what we also explore in this use case we show here, is that you select with your point of gaze. In eye tracking, there's something which is called Midas touch, which is like, goes back to the fairy tale of the King Midas, which wished everything he would touch turns to gold, and then he ended up starving. And so a similar problem is there, because if essentially everything reacts to where you're looking at, you will have like, everything will suddenly pop up because your eyes are a sensing, not a pointing device. So there have to be essentially smart ways you have to find in order to know when a user is like willing to interact. What you can certainly do is like use just a single button to confirm that. But sometimes like in special scenarios, you can like, out of like the gaze pattern, just like derive what the user's intention are. For example, like in reading is something which is very unique. A reading pattern is easy to detect. And